Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier's infamous brawl, Conor McGregor attacking Khabib's bus, Chael Sonnen nearly dethroning Anderson Silva. These rivalries didn't just create headlines, they redefined the UFC and kept fans on the edge of their seats. But which rivalry had the most drama, the highest stakes, and the deepest grudges? Stay tuned, because today, we're breaking down the UFC's greatest blood feuds and what made them unforgettable. Rivalries aren't just about the fights, they're about emotion, pride, and legacy. They've given us moments of chaos, redemption, and even heartbreak. And each rivalry tells a story, one that fans will argue about for generations. Let's dive into the rivalries that shaped the UFC into what it is today. Few rivalries have divided fans like Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. This wasn't just a clash of two fighters, it was a cultural war. On one side, McGregor, the brash Irishman with the golden tongue. On the other, Khabib, the stoic Dagestani, who let his actions speak louder than words. It all began with McGregor's relentless trash talk. He called Khabib a coward, mocked his religion, insulted his father, and even brought his family into the feud. But the turning point came at UFC 223, when McGregor crossed a line no one expected. He attacked a bus carrying Khabib and other fighters, smashing its windows with a dolly in a shocking display of aggression. Fighters were injured, lawsuits followed, and suddenly, this was about much more than a belt. At UFC 229, the fight itself was a spectacle. Khabib dominated McGregor with relentless grappling and ground and pound, finishing the fight with a neck crank in the fourth round. But what happened after the fight made this rivalry legendary. Khabib leaped out of the cage, attacking McGregor's team in a chaotic melee that sparked fights inside and outside the Octagon. Fans couldn't believe what they were seeing. To this day, the bad blood lingers. Was it McGregor's disrespect that fueled Khabib's fury, or was it Khabib's dominance that silenced McGregor? This rivalry wasn't just a fight, it was a battle for pride, respect, and everything in between. Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier wasn't just a rivalry, it was a battle for legacy. Two of the greatest fighters in UFC history who couldn't stand the sight of each other. The feud began at a press event for UFC 178. What was supposed to be a routine face-off turned into an all-out brawl, with Jones and Cormier throwing punches and toppling the stage. It was chaos, and it was personal. Their first fight at UFC 182 lived up to the hype. Jones defeated Cormier in a grueling 5-round war, solidifying his dominance as the light heavyweight king. But the animosity didn't end there. Cormier worked his way back to the top, capturing the title in Jones's absence. But their rematch at UFC 214 reignited the fire. Jones delivered one of the most devastating head-kick knockouts in UFC history, reclaiming his belt. But the victory was short-lived. Jones tested positive for a banned substance, and the fight was ruled a no contest. For Cormier, it wasn't just a loss, it was betrayal. For Jones, it was another chapter in a career filled with controversy. Even today, their animosity is palpable. Cormier called Jones a cheater, while Jones accused Cormier of being fake. For fans, this rivalry wasn't just about two fighters, it was about two opposing ideals. Discipline versus chaos, grit versus raw talent. Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen was the rivalry that introduced fans to the power of trash talk. Silva was the untouchable champion, a fighter who made opponents look amateur. Sonnen was his polar opposite, brash, outspoken, and unapologetically arrogant. Before their fight at UFC 117, Sonnen went on a verbal rampage. He called Silva overrated, mocked his opponents, and even insulted his home country of Brazil. But what made this rivalry legendary was what happened inside the cage. For nearly 5 rounds, Sonnen dominated Silva like no one ever had. It looked like the greatest upset in MMA history was about to unfold. But with just minutes left in the final round, Silva pulled off one of the most miraculous comebacks in UFC history, locking in a triangle choke and forcing Sonnen to tap. The rematch at UFC 148 was just as intense, but this time, Silva left no doubt, finishing Sonnen with a brutal TKO. Yet, even in defeat, Sonnen's trash talk elevated this rivalry to legendary status, proving that words can be just as powerful as punches. Before Ronda Rousey, women's MMA struggled for recognition. Her rivalry with Miesha Tate changed that forever. Rousey, the brash and confident judo Olympian, was the face of women's MMA. Tate, the gritty wrestler, was her perfect rival. Their first fight in Strikeforce was brutal, with Rousey dislocating Tate's elbow with her signature armbar. The tension only grew when they met again at UFC 168. Rousey won once more with an armbar, but Tate's refusal to tap until the last second earned her respect from fans worldwide. This rivalry wasn't just about winning, it was about proving women's MMA belonged on the biggest stage. Together, Rousey and Tate didn't just fight each other, they fought for the future of the sport. Nick Diaz versus Georges St-Pierre was a clash of opposites. GSP was the disciplined, respectful champion. Diaz was the brash, rebellious brawler who thrived on chaos. Their rivalry came to a head at UFC 158, with Diaz accusing GSP of being fake and pampered. GSP, usually calm, fired back, saying he wanted to destroy Diaz. In the fight, GSP's wrestling and control neutralized Diaz's aggression, earning him a dominant victory. But even in defeat, Diaz's defiance and trash talk kept the rivalry alive. For fans, this wasn't just a fight, it was a philosophical battle of respect versus rebellion. Rivalries are what make us care. They're the stories that turn fights into wars and fighters into legends. From the chaos of McGregor versus Khabib to the redemption of Silva versus Sonnen, these rivalries are the heartbeat of the UFC. Who do you think had the greatest rivalry in UFC history? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories from the Octagon.